It all starts with a whisper, a faint smell of smoke on the wind, a distant siren that you almost convince yourself is just a normal part of the day. But then, the sky begins to change. The brilliant California blue surrenders to a hazy, angry orange. The Eaton fire came roaring down the canyon. It wasn't just a news story. It was a living, breathing monster that devoured everything in its path, leaving a trail of black and gray where vibrant lives once stood. It came with ferocious speed. No time for second thoughts, no time for one last look. For so many, home is more than just a building. The kitchen where you've shared 1,000 meals, the laughter echoing off the walls, your sanctuary. When a fire like this sweeps through, it doesn't just burn wood and plaster. It burns memories. It incinerates the tangible pieces of a life. The Eaton fire was a thief in the night, stealing sacred spaces, leaving families with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the heavy weight of what was. But then, a small flicker began, the spirit of human connection. This is the story of Altadena's fire survivors. Mars Tekosky and her husband had found their forever home. It wasn't just any house, it was a piece of history, a nearly 100-year-old sanctuary nestled in the beautiful landscape of Altadena. They had poured their hearts, their savings, and their dreams into this place. Every corner held a promise, a vision of the life they were going to build within its walls. They had just embarked on a massive renovation, carefully planning every detail to honor the home's historic character while making it their own. It was a labor of love, a project that symbolized their future. The fire changed everything in the blink of an eye. One moment, they were excitedly discussing blueprints and paint colors. The next, they were fleeing for their lives as the flames raced toward them. The evacuation order came with a terrifying urgency, leaving them with mere minutes to grab what they could. The return was a scene of utter devastation. Where their beautiful, historic home once stood, there was now only a blackened foundation, a chimney rising like a lonely tombstone, and a pile of twisted metal and ash. The dream was gone. The days that followed the fire were a blur of shock and disbelief. For Mars, waking up each morning brought a fresh wave of pain. Her home was gone. Making coffee in her kitchen, watching the sunset from her porch, the loss was a constant, an ache that never subsided. She found herself replaying the final moments before the evacuation, questioning every decision, wondering if she could have saved just one more thing. A photograph, a letter, a small token of her past. This is the cruel trick that grief plays on the mind. It's strange to be without a home, to have all your worldly possessions reduced to a single carload. Mars felt like a ghost, haunting the edges of a life that was no longer hers. Friends and family would ask, "What do you need?" The question itself was overwhelming. How do you answer when you need everything? You need a toothbrush, you need a place to sleep, you need your favorite mug. But more than things, the feeling of belonging, the comfort of your own space, the silent reassurance of the familiar. In the same fire-ravaged neighborhood lived Helen, a 91-year-old woman whose story is a powerful testament to the quiet strength of the human spirit. Her home, miraculously, was spared by the flames. While the houses around her were reduced to smoldering ruins, hers stood intact, an island of familiarity in a sea of destruction. But survival came with its own set of immense challenges. The fire had destroyed the infrastructure of the neighborhood, cutting off all the essential services we so often take for granted. Helen was left alone in her house with no electricity, no running water, no gas. The silence was deafening, the darkness at night absolute. For a woman of her age, living under such conditions was not just an inconvenience. It was a serious threat to her well-being. The simple act of getting a glass of water or preparing a meal became a monumental task. The food in her refrigerator spoiled. The nights were cold and unnervingly dark. She was isolated, surrounded by the ghosts of her neighbors' homes, and cut off from the world. This is where the true light of humanity began to shine through the smoke. Helen's neighbors, people who had lost their own homes and were dealing with their own profound grief, did not forget her. They brought her bottles of fresh water, enough for drinking and washing. They came bearing hot meals, cooked in the temporary kitchens of their rented apartments or relatives' homes. In the darkest of times, they were her light. Helen's resilience was nothing short of remarkable. At 91 years old, she had witnessed a century of change, lived through wars, and seen the world transform around her. This fire was yet another profound test. She met it with a quiet dignity that was truly inspiring. While she was deeply grateful for neighborly help, the emotional toll was immense. From her windows, she looked out not at familiar homes, but at a desolate, blackened landscape. Every day was a stark reminder of catastrophe and loss. The loneliness was a heavy blanket. The disruption to her routine was deeply unsettling. Predictability and familiarity are anchors for an elderly person. Listening to the radio, watching her favorite television programs, calling a friend on her landline, were all gone. She sat in the silence of her home, and it gave her strength to endure. For Yvonne and Robin Miguel, their home was the heart of their universe. It was the place they had lived for 40 years. The only home their children had ever known. 40 years. 4 decades of birthdays celebrated, holidays hosted, scraped knees patched up in the kitchen, a living museum of family history, every scuff on the floor, every picture on the wall, not just a possession, a member of the family, a silent witness. When the evacuation order came, chaos was immediate. They scrambled to decide what to save. They grabbed documents. They grabbed pets. They grabbed a few sentimental items. The news, when it came, was crushing. Their home was gone. Completely. Nothing left but gray ash. In the days following the fire, Ivan and Robin began the painful process of sifting through the wreckage of their life. It was a somber archaeological dig through layers of ash, through debris, searching for any small remnant that might have survived the inferno. Most everything they touched crumbled into dust. The heat had been so intense that it had melted metal and turned glass to liquid. Hopes of finding anything intact were dwindling with each shovelful of ash. The task felt hopeless. And then, they saw it. Sitting atop a pile of blackened rubble, somehow untouched by the devastating heat, a small ceramic angel. It was pristine. Not a crack, not a chip, not even a smudge of soot marred its delicate features. In a landscape of total destruction, this fragile object had endured. Ivan picked it up, cradling it in his hands, staring in disbelief. The angel was more than a piece of ceramic. It was a symbol. The stories of Mars, Helen, and the Migels are more than just accounts of a natural disaster. Mars, Helen, the Migels. They are profound lessons in the resilience of the human spirit. They teach us that even when we lose everything we thought was important, our homes, our possessions, our sense of normalcy, we have an incredible capacity to endure and to begin again. Resilience is not the absence of pain or grief. It is the courage to move forward despite it. It is finding the strength to take that first step toward a new future, even when the path is covered in ash and you can't see where it leads. These stories illuminate the extraordinary power of hope found in the smallest of things. For the Migels, it was a ceramic angel that survived the inferno. For Helen, it was the daily arrival of a neighbor with a hot meal. For Mars, hope began to return in the shared stories and hugs from fellow survivors. Perhaps the most powerful lesson from the ashes of Altadena is the undeniable importance of community. A house is a structure, but a home is the people who surround you. Neighbors helping neighbors, strangers becoming friends. From the ashes, a stronger, more connected community was born, proving that the human spirit is the one thing no fire can ever destroy.